Okay, we're back. Season 2 of The
S-
Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
I'm so excited to be back. It's good to see
Hi,
you, Dr. Jones.
it's good to see you, Dr. Brimhall. It's good to be back. Initially, I was not super, always excited to get to talk to you, not super
Of course.
excited about watching season 2. But that's because I was which I think you were too, in the throes of watching like really good TV, like White Lotus and Severance and The Last of Us. And so then preparing for The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives season 2 was not super excited. But then when I've been watching, now I'm hooked. I'm hooked. So I'm here.
You tuned in, and that was all it took.
That's all it took. I'm here.
I think that after watching season one and doing the podcast and then going into season two, I'm really going to be curious to see how my opinions on some of the characters may or may not change. If the showrunners will manipulate me into hating the people that they want me to or not.
I mean, I love a good redemption arc. I love it. It's one of my favorites. So the villain of one season comes back. They're no longer the villain. Someone else is the villain. I mean, like I said, a redemption arc is great. Just a reminder though, I know we've said this many a time. This in no way is psychological advice. We might be psychologists, but it's mostly just us talking about a TV show and then sprinkling in maybe some psychological tidbits here and there.
That's right. This should not be conflated with treatment or expertise in any way. Just entertainment, please.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. You want to jump in?
Yeah, let's do it.
I did not rewatch season 1. Did you rewatch season 1 preparing for this?
No, I listened to us talk about it, so it was
Yeah.
like I was there.
Like you. Yes. I didn't watch season 1 again. But I feel like I remember most of it. Episode 1, it starts off with a sort of a montage of different like magazines or online articles, headlines about mom talk and the impact on the LDS Church and the controversy uh, as sort of an opening. Do you have any thoughts about that?
I was really noticing my own personal either defensiveness or opinions showing up when I watched some of the opening. It's interesting because a lot of what they showed that the church was putting out was basically sort of saying this is a gross mischaracterization of Mormon people, culture, church doctrine. I'm not sure what it said actually, but a gross mischaracterization. And I felt like that was true. I said that in season one that when they show up and they're branding themselves as Mormon wives, I'm not I'm not sure if the typical Mormon person is seeing themselves reflected in this show. I also think that these are still people who are living in Utah. And so I think it kind of brings up like when is something religion and when is it culture and who gets to gatekeep that. And so I think their thoughts of saying we're going to push against the patriarchy, we're going to bring the Mormon culture into the modern age, the part of me that wants to be protective of like, you know, how people feel about things they hold sacred kind of
Yeah.
feels like weird about that. It's like if you don't like it, don't change it, just leave. That mentality that people have. If you don't like it here, just leave. A little
Mhm.
bit of that comes up for me, but then the other part of just sort of like leave to where like this is still their culture, this is still their story, this is still their life, and if they want you to modernize, that's their want. So it brought up a lot for me. That was interesting.
I thought it was interesting that it seemed like the majority of the headlines, and it wasn't, I don't think they showed a ton of different headlines, but they showed a handful focused on the garments. And
Mm,
did you notice that? Which I thought, I was like, that wasn't my takeaway from season 1. Like, that was not, it was mentioned. We talked about it on when we talked about season 1. But to me, I just thought that was interesting. So I wrote down like one of the headlines was the younger members of the Utah LDS Church are seeing garments as optional. Is this true?
mm.
That was one. There was another one. I didn't write the other one down. But I just thought that part was interesting.
You know that old saying when they say, you know, you don't know what inner battles someone is fighting, so be kind.
Mhm.
For Mormons, the inner battle they're fighting is always about the way their underwear fits with their clothes or not. I'm being silly, but it is constantly on people's minds on how this fits. Can I wear this with my garments? Like,
Like wearing a tank top?
yeah, like wearing a tank top or wearing shorts and sort of be like, these are long enough, but when I sit down, will they show?
Yeah.
There's sort of a little joke sometimes that I would hear in Utah where if somebody's garments were hanging out their shorts or so you could see them, they would say your religion is showing. And so it's a very silly thing, and obviously it's sort of like a chosen thing that people do, but the way that garments have to be navigated while people are getting dressed every single day and presenting themselves in a world whose fashion choices aren't necessarily, going to accommodate them. I find it very fascinating that freedom from wearing garments is something that I think people are grappling with when they see women like these and influencers talking about how it's optional or talking about it in different ways. I
Mhm.
don't know if this show has anything to do with it, but I think the idea that it might be optional or less stringent is very exciting to many LDS
Yeah.
people and maybe especially women because I think their fashion choices sort of are dictated the most by it.
Hmm. That makes sense. I think that makes sense. Among that montage, there were, is it Demi or Demi?
I've said both. I think it's Demi. I mean, I think that's just how you say that name, so I'm not sure.
Okay, well, I'm going to say Demi.
Okay.
She said, we're moving the needle to where mom talk like intended in terms of challenging the patriarchy, which I know you mentioned. Jesse, I think, says something. We didn't actually say anything bad about the Mormon faith or, LDS church community. We were just expressing our opinions, and so I think speaking to the controversy or the bad responses.
I think it's fascinating.
The
They are pushing against the culture in a very public way.
Well, a lot of them still seem very involved in the church. I mean, they seem to have maintained the beliefs, and they'll show like in their homes different, like pictures or some imagery that exists within their homes that connects them to the church. And so it doesn't seem like they're denouncing like their
Yeah,
beliefs, but
it feels important to think about how, like, despite how much religion can be a community thing and a cultural thing, it's still personal when it comes to your spirituality. And so I think that anytime somebody goes against a culture a little, it's easy to sort of say, like, oh, you're doing that a little off or different or whatever. It's like it's really easy to see the people who are not sort of doing it in the most uniform way. But spirituality should be personal anyway. So I do think it's fascinating that it might be easy for someone like me to look at this and just sort of be like, they're not real Mormons, or they're not really doing it the way they're supposed to. But who am I to say that? They're doing it, it's their life. They're doing it the way they're doing it.
yeah.
It's pretty interesting.
I think we should talk about the opening is different than it
Yes.
was last season. There's a baptism theme here, very
Hmm.
sexy, I'm
Hmm.
gonna say.
Very,
I mean,
too sexy for my taste when it comes to a baptism.
one of the things I thought of was if I had to do that and emerge from the water with wet hair, I would not look like that. But no, they all looked really great. They had the blue pea coat. So I like when I was taking notes when I was watching it initially, and I was like, oh, they got rid of the blue pea coats for the white baptism like dress. And then at the very end, it's you see them like the camera sort of zooming out. They're with the blue coats, but it's so quick you almost don't see it. I'm into the new opening. Okay, let's talk. So the first scene um was the Gracie Lou fundraiser event. I was like, who's Gracie Lou? Are we supposed to know this? What is this fundraiser event? It was an influencer event, which
Right,
I
not
thought, do
just them.
these exist? These like parties with just influencers that come and take pictures and
Like a crossover like they do in the comics.
I'm gonna say though, I really like how they edited and this first episode where they were going from the describing the controversy and how they're trying to challenge the patriarchy and modernize the LDS church. And then they cut to this, and the music is loud, and they're slow motion walking in their little booty shorts with their cowboy hats. And I really enjoyed that. I thought that was good. But yeah, so they're at this fundraiser. They're all coming in. Whitney shows up, very pregnant, two
And,
weeks away from giving birth.
and they say new Whitney, new hair.
They said new Whitney, new hair. Everyone was a little quiet, it was a little awkward when she showed up.
It sounds to me like Whitney probably watched season one, saw all the online backlash. I'm guessing because I'm not watching the online backlash, and saw that she was the villain. I think she said so. I was the villain, or I'm the villain of season one. But I think she probably realized it wasn't helping her. That's how I read this, right? Is like, okay, so now if she wants to stay in the show, she can't just forever be on the outs with everyone. So she's going to show up. But
Yes.
I think she shows up in the same way she always has, which is no apology, act like everything's good. She did seem a little changed. She seemed a little humble.
Yeah.
Michaela wasn't having it, which I thought was so funny.
So Michaela, the I have not completed the season. We're not going to spoil anything. It's just episode one, but I will say Michaela this season is very different, and I think we will find out the reasons why in
Mm.
a few episodes that will be interesting for us to talk about and comment on. But yes, Michaela is very outspoken, whereas I think in season one, pretty quiet.
And maybe she was just exhausted. I don't know where she was at in her whole medical journey either, but yeah, she was immediately really like
Well,
opinionated, which was interesting to see. I couldn't tell if she was being too much of a mean girl in this one part of the episode, so I'm still kind of feeling out what this new Michaela is going to be.
they gave a brief recap of Whitney's season one, or reintroduce the audience, remind everyone that Whitney was the villain and she's on the outs. They're like, well, Whitney didn't go to Taylor's baby shower. She removed herself from the group. And then they did that same part of the theme song where the hallelujah part,
Mm.
where Whitney left the group chat, which they always go back to, which I think is very entertaining. And then here comes Miranda.
Miranda. I'm meeting Miranda for the first time. I haven't followed any of her scandal, but Miranda must have been the main other person who refused to be on the show in season one if Taylor would be there.
Yes. So I don't know if you remember when we recorded the our season one of season one. I mentioned I went down this TikTok rabbit hole at like in the middle of the night. I couldn't sleep and saw all these videos of like the original videos of Taylor and these two blonde women that to me looked identical. Like they could have Randa was one of them, though. I don't know who the other person was. And so maybe the other person was one of the gals that said, I will not be on the show unless Taylor's off. Maybe it
Hmm.
was Miranda. I'm unsure. But Miranda is back. She and her ex-husband, Chase, were involved in the swinging scandal. And everyone is very suspicious as to why Miranda is choosing to attempt to rejoin Mom Talk.
What could be her motivation, they wonder.
Very skeptical. Yes. Why are you back?
What's funny is there's one of the things I think I will talk about is how direct or indirect communication is sometimes. And there's parts coming up where I think everybody gets really direct, but they never say the meta part that we talk about, which is, the producers are going to put them in this situation. So when they're saying, why is she here? The part that's not being said is somebody thought it would be good television. And so she's invited. She's not just showing up.
Or she reached out to a producer and said, I want back, or whatever.
Yeah, who proposed it is up for question.
Mhm. But yes, yes, the producers arranged. Yeah. Come
But
on,
it goes back to the old reality show thing that you said, which is scrutinizing how pure someone's motivations are. Are
you're
her motivations pure that she wants to do this for friendship, or is she not
here for the right
for the
reasons.
right reasons?
My favorite. You're not here for the right reasons.
Yeah.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
can appreciate how that's actually valid in this case. If she's gone, didn't talk to them for years, denied things that may or may not have been true, and then comes back once the show is successful, I'd feel a little bit like, ah. Here you are.
Welcome back. You now want a part of it. No,
Hmm.
I would too. I would be like, no, are you kidding? You didn't want to do it at first. You've distanced yourself. You want nothing to do with Taylor. And now you saw that season one took off. And as Michaela said, they are making a ton of money. One brand deal, more than her husband's salary in a year. Remarkable. This is why, so I actually thought about this when I was listening to that part in particular. This is probably why young people there are a lot of young people out there. I want to be an influencer. I
Hmm.
it could be it's very appealing if all you have to do is make a bunch of videos and then you can just make thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. Like you know how before each scene they will show a TikTok video that one of the girls made.
Hmm.
And one of them was that trend that was like, they're running and they're like, suspect is a millionaire, multi-millionaire, but
Hmm.
used to order off the kids' meal. I was like, these ladies are multi-millionaires and granted, the show obviously has really helped them, probably career-wise, but like,
Yeah.
dang, we chose the wrong career. Just kidding.
Yeah, we did. We're just talking about the multimillionaires. That surely won't trickle down to us.
We were in school for over a decade, but it
That's right.
doesn't matter.
Yeah, but we should have just been working on a show about us.
Exactly. So, okay, so Miranda comes, she says, they're like, why are you here? She says, I'm divorced now. It was mostly her now ex-husband Chase who maybe wanted to distance herself, or yeah, wanted her to distance herself from Mom Talk. They asked, did you see it coming? She said yes.
It was her choice.
They ask, are you coming back to Mom Talk? My guess is yes. Uh, Demi asks, just gets to it. Were you involved in like the swinging scandal? She said she just kissed other people, that it was the equivalent of spin the bottle,
Hmm.
nothing else. They got very personal with asking if there was any oral, anything else,
They
which I
got very
thought, wow,
direct.
ladies, like, was just what?
I, on the one hand, so there are parts where, under the guise, or at least the motivation of the truth well out, they're asking some very direct questions, which I appreciate. I think being really direct when, like, you know what you want to know and you're having this conversation, like, be direct instead of how maybe this is going to feel. So I liked that they were being direct, but it was funny that that was what felt so important, was just like, which holes? It was
Yeah,
like, what?
I think someone said, did you touch a wiener?
Did you? Yeah, they got very graphic.
Yes, I was like, this is a lot for Miranda.
Yeah,
She's just she just said they just kissed. So I don't think she's then gonna be like, you know what? Yeah, in this moment,
I
I
did.
did touch a
I was
wiener.
kissing, but I was batting around a wiener on the side. It was
Yeah,
all.
yes. No, I don't think so. Then okay, so
I do think they're
Taylor,
setting a precedent where they're like, we're going to be honest, maybe. Like, if you're going to come back, it's going to be in honesty,
yeah,
going to be revealing.
you're gonna own what you did. If you're gonna come, if we welcome you in, if they get to that point, you need to be honest.
Yeah.
So Taylor then joins. And I cannot say enough. I love the slow-mo walk with each person, each new person. Which side note, so you know the mechanical bull that they all
Uh-huh.
were taking turns riding? Whitney got up there and I was like, is that safe away? But I don't think that
Check
she
my
rode
brochure.
bull. I think she just got on and did this, like number and for pictures.
Imagine the headlines.
I was like, Whitney, and it looked like it was hard, but understandably so. She's 2 weeks away from giving birth. Like, kudos to her for getting on it. I don't think I would be able to, but I thought that was like, okay. Anyway, so Taylor comes to the event. She says she's shocked and uncomfortable seeing Miranda. She's
Hmm.
confused. Why
Hmm.
is she there? And she confirms that it was Chase who said he had feelings. So Miranda's now ex-husband, Chase, had feelings for her.
Uh, she does say she was confused of stealing her best friend's husband, which she says I didn't do. It was Chase that
Yes.
had feelings first.
Yes.
And then they clarify that Taylor and Miranda kissed.
Yes. They said, well, because she said, I won't. What did she say? I won't bite.
I won't bite you, and I won't kiss you, I promise. Not this time. Miranda chuckling. Oh, wait. So you guys kissed?
Mm, mm-hmm.
Anyway,
Yeah.
whatever. Miranda and I have yet to conversate about the whole situation, but she's exhausted dealing with Dakota and the baby, so she's just like, whatever.
I don't like the word conversate.
No, it's not a word.
Right? It's not a word. That's what I thought. I was like, or is it like I'm not, it does not sound like a word,
No,
but
you converse
converse.
or you have a
Talk.
conversation.
You talk.
Yeah.
Conversate. Okay.
But Taylor
Um,
basically says everything that's going on with Dakota is more on my mind, even as she's showing up. So she sees Miranda and is just like, ugh, Dakota is still the primary problem in my life.
confirms that I have so many thoughts about this, so many thoughts. Confirms that he was involved with a girl when they were dating early on. He finally came forward and said there was more to the story, and she was lied to for a very long time. She says, I'm nobody's second choice. She feels betrayed,
Hmm.
and she's not sure if she wants to move forward.
So we hear a little bit about this, about Dakota and Taylor, and then it switches over to updates on Zach and Jen. We're getting updates on everyone. Where's everybody at?
Yes. Yeah. She is. So Jen says she's separated from Zach. She's crying. She never thought she would get to this point.
Hmm.
She decided to come back to Utah and rejoin Mom Talk. Okay, so I have thoughts about this. So she said we are separated. I was curious how much of this is really that they had a conversation. I don't know that so when you say I'm separated from my spouse, I think the understanding is you have a conversation. I do not think we can stay married, but or I don't feel like I want to stay in this necessarily. I think we need to do some sort of separation. Let's just keep our distance, our own separate spaces, and then we will reconvene and decide what we want to do, like a
It's
trial
like a
separation.
trial divorce.
Yeah, yeah. This sounded to me like they weren't separated as much as she said, "Hey, I can make a lot more money if I go back to Utah with my Mom Talk friends and I can continue filming this show and I'm going to do it." I mean, it sounded less like I don't know that I want to stay in this marriage. But what did you think?
Well, so you're saying that him showing up to the house with luggage, can I stay here, was kind of staged for the show.
That's what it felt like. Yes.
It
Like
did
it. Mhm.
it did feel a bit like that. I wasn't sure. I mean, I think what you just said is interesting. I hadn't thought about that as much as I just thought, oh, I wonder if this is staged for the show because it makes Jen look strong. It makes Zach look penitent. I will say, I wonder about him dropping out of medical school. My partner says, I don't think he could hack it. I have no idea. I don't have any sense of that, but it's presented as if he left medical school to work on the marriage, right?
It was he was granted a 1 year leave of absence.
Yeah,
So
which happens in graduate
yeah,
school and such. Yeah.
he, he's able to go back within a year. So it makes it so he has not completely like dropped out. He can
Right. He
return,
doesn't have to reapply and do all of the many things. Yeah, he can still go.
right? But to me, it really sounded like she said, I'm not happy. I want to go back and do the mom talk thing. I want to continue with the show. I want to be a part of it. This is my career. This is how I support the family. And so I am doing it. And whether you like it or not. And she left. It did not, to me, it seemed more like that versus I do not know that I want to stay married and I think we need to live apart.
Yeah.
Do you agree? I feel like it was more that, but I mean, I don't know, obviously.
I don't know, but I will say that obviously I had very strong feelings about the Zach character from last season. I thought Jen was really strong here. I was like, it was another time when I was like, this sounds like somebody who's been to a little bit of therapy, who's maybe clarified what they
Jen,
feel like they have the right to, what they have the right to ask for in a relationship. And so she's really assertive. And especially, I love she's not only assertive, but she's super clear where she says, if I wanted to go to a Chippendale show, and even if they had danced with me, you don't say the things you said. Like she was very clear about like that line being super inappropriate and that is not a line that she should have to worry about crossing. I thought it was a super strong statement.
I agree. I agree. She said, you need to put my emotions first, which to me, like that, I felt like she was just saying, yeah, you need to consider my emotions and my feelings for once. Like, you got to take that into
She
consideration.
Well, it's true. I the maybe male defensive part of me heard her say, "What
I
I
can,
want should always come before what you want,"
she didn't
and
say it well.
and I was like, "Well, wait a minute." But when you're talking to Zach, that's probably like a good.
You-
That's where he needs to start.
because otherwise, yeah, he's not going to quite get it. I thought the same thing. I was like, I don't know that he needs to put your emotions first, but he needs to value them and take them seriously and support you in how you're feeling. And so, but yeah, maybe in Zach's language for him to understand, it's put me first.
Me
Uh,
first, always. I do
yeah,
think she was good. It wasn't really unkind or anything, but I think it was like honest and clear when she said, "And I know that that will be hard for you because of your personality." Like that was a kind way of saying like you're inherently selfish, and so you'll have to like this will take effort for you.
yeah, yeah. He shows up with a brand new do.
He did, yeah. He looks
I
much.
texted you about this. He looks like PETA from the Hunger Games.
That's true. You know what's funny is when you text that to me, I was picturing that he was like Snow, like President Snow from the prequel one, which made some sense to me also. But yes, you're right. He looks like he's headed to the Capitol.
he he says he knows he messed up, and then he acknowledges no matter what she did, he shouldn't have said those things, and he wants to fight for their marriage and their family. He said after Vegas it felt like the whole world was against us. He's in therapy. Zach's in therapy, which is good. So he sounds like he's either in therapy or he has been coached very well. um
I thought the same thing actually. I was like, someone's coaching him,
like
probably
this
helping
is
him.
So Jen says something like, I don't care if I did dance with like the Chippendales men. You should never have spoken to me that way. But the look on his face, there was something very brief that flashed through his eyes. Like he's
Mm.
trying. Like that to me, I was like, he's engaging in some emotion regulation skills. So I support that. Even if he had a reaction. I think he had an internal reaction though, when she's like, I don't care if I was up there on stage dancing with or whatever. And he was like, ooh, his whole body tensed.
But still don't though, right?
You're not going. Yeah.
I would still rather that didn't happen.
But you're not going to do that in the future, right? And then one thing that I thought, so one thing Jen said, which I appreciated, she said she always felt like she was too sensitive or too emotional.
Mm.
And I think that is well, I'm not going to comment on their attachment style, but I do feel like if you have someone with an, I don't think she does necessarily, but like an anxious attachment with an avoidant attachment personality, oftentimes I think someone who's more avoidant, the anxious person ends up feeling like they're overly dramatic or they're
Mm.
too emotional. And she's just wanting to feel validated. That's all. And heard.
Yeah.
Aren't we?
Which is a big deal. I think in the last episode of the first season, she was feeling him out to say, "What about mom talk? Do you think I'll miss it?" I knew the answer was yes. She knew the answer was yes. I think she was giving him a chance to validate that it was important to her. And he was really quick to be like, "I don't think you will, honestly. I don't think it's a big deal." And I bring that up again because I do think he's getting better. I think he's been coached. I could imagine him somebody sat down being like, "These are all the things that are uncool objectively." Like everyone agrees, like that you need to know this, and that he at least took that strategically, if not genuinely.
Which I would like to comment. My years of watching Bravo and Real Housewives, I have seen many a Real House husband
Mm,
uh, become the villain, so to speak. And everyone thinks, oh, you should not be with that male. He is not good or kind. And then he comes back the next season, a different person. But I think reality TV can make or break a relationship. I think it can be really hard on a relationship. But I do think in some cases, the person who's a little bit of a jerk watches themselves or gets feedback and they're like, maybe that's not an okay way to talk to my spouse.
Yeah.
And if they take
Or
that
both. Yeah.
opportunity, yeah, to grow, they can change, I think. So I think that there can be some good from that.
I
From
agree. I mean, when we're training to be therapists, we watch ourselves all the time, partially related, but we watch ourselves all the time, and it can be really easy to say like, "Oh, I thought I was being so empathic." I remember when I started doing Zoom appointments, I used to think that I was looking at people and giving kind of like a, "Yeah." And then when I could see my face on the screen, it was much more like I was looking bored or confused, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not giving out what I think I am." So all that being said, when we watch ourselves giving therapy, we can feel good in the moment, look at ourselves and say that could be different. I'm only imagining if you're like behaving badly that you can look at yourself and be like, "Oh, that's embarrassing." Jen asks if he's willing to meet with the friends, and I think he's very nervous to do that. He agrees to it. He
Mhm.
says that some of the things that they said were blatant lies, which I feel like they weren't telling lies as much as they were like giving opinions about him. They're like, he's trash. Well, that's a lie. That's, but still, whatever. He's nervous. He's nervous to meet with them. But Jen thinks it would be important, which is understandable because they shared their difficult opinions with him, and so for her to be back with them and let him move back in or whatever the staging is, um, she's like, this will look bad for me unless you also work on your relationship with them. So he agrees to it.
He did. There was that one scene where he said he sent the ladies a message and they showed a clip of the other ladies playing his voice message, his voice memo.
Yeah,
And one of the things he said was, I never planned on those messages being seen. And they're like, you never planned on them being seen? You don't feel bad about what you said? And they were laughing and said he used ChatGPT, which,
to form his apology.
and he did the same one for all of them, is what they said. Because someone said
Yeah.
he said the exact same thing to me, but he's nervous. He's nervous.
I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, right? Because if you went to ChatGPT and said, I need to find a good apology, I think that it would actually give you it would probably tell you how to apologize. It would talk about taking accountability, not casting blame elsewhere, not trying to duck it. But the part where he says those were never meant to be seen, it's just interesting. Like, why is that part of the defense? Because it's implying that what I say privately to my wife has a different audience than if I'm saying it to everyone and there's something more appropriate about, like, I'm not sure what he's sort of trying to imply by those messages were never supposed to be seen. Because it just makes him look bad. It's like I said bad things and I didn't want people to see them. Yeah, it's like don't include that in the apology, man.
Well, the fact that he doesn't realize that is interesting to me because to me, that seems obvious. So the next scene, Taylor goes over to Macy's house
Super
to
difficult
meet
scene.
with Jenna. Yes.
So this was the cliffhanger from season one where Macy got the confession via her Sinner Sunday message board and then held on to it, the information for a long time. And the information being that someone slept with Dakota, didn't know
Or
that, hooked up with Dakota, didn't know that he was dating Taylor at the time. Here's my confession. Dakota claims that those two things were not overlapping, that nothing untoward happened. Taylor feels lied to because he said, I'm going to go hang out with the guys. And instead, I think went and hung out with, maybe slept with, maybe made out with this person instead. So this has been, I think this has been the ongoing thing. And this is supposedly the other person who left that confession. And Macy's called her up to get to the bottom of it because the truth well out again is the theme of the season.
they waited for Taylor to have her baby, and now she's had her baby ever, and she is ready to hear Jenna out.
I really felt for Taylor because, as much as whatever feelings I have about reality TV and then whatever impressions I have about how realistic or not people are, I think Taylor is a person who can't help but to be kind of real. And so I think I get a lot of real stuff from her. I could be wrong. But this scene and a couple of times in this season already where it's really hard. I mean, she is heartbroken over this, but she's very upset about this. This has been the thing that's been on her mind the whole time is about trust and about feeling like she was being lied to and wanting to know. I guess ultimately, if Dakota was lying to her about what
Mhm.
actually happened with this person.
Yes. I felt bad for Taylor and Jenna. I mean, Jenna, I guess volunteered to show up, but I was like that was kind of her to do. Like Jenna didn't do anything wrong, right?
Right.
But she is willing to show Taylor the text messages and share uh her version of things, and it was very uncomfortable. Macy slowly getting some ice water
For herself.
for herself and then slowly sipping it while the two of them. And it felt like a long time, like the ice clinking slowly from coming out of the freezer. And then she starts to fill it with water, and then she's taking some sips. I was like, geez, Macy, like you couldn't have had a cup of water before Jenna got there. Come
It's
on.
such it was such a strange scene because clearly they're all feeling very awkward, but I'm like, well, what did you think was going to happen? Like somebody was going to have to facilitate this. They're
Yes.
like
You're the one. It's your home. You arranged it.
I'm very comfortable in group therapy, just sitting there quietly and letting people figure out what they need to say. But there's been no sort of like preface of what is even supposed to happen. They just show up and then Macy like leaves the room. It's
Help
all,
myself to some cool, refreshing
I
glass of
know.
water.
I wish I could have been there. I was wanting so badly to be like, so who would like to speak first? Like I just like just any kind of prompt would have been so great there.
It was very uncomfortable. And I will say my heart went out to Taylor in this scene multiple times over the course of the next few episodes. My heart really hurts for Taylor. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to preface with that. But Taylor then reads the text messages. So okay, this is October because they are talking about Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yep.
But she just had her baby a few months ago. And so one of the questions she's asking, did you guys hang out August 3rd? We're talking August 3rd the prior year,
Yes. Yes.
right? And never, and those are the moments where I started like chuckling to myself, thinking, oh my gosh, if someone said, what did you do a month ago? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
I
And
can't tell you what I did over the weekend half the time on Monday.
yes. She's like, did you hang out on August 3rd? And what did you do? Did he spend the night? And she's like, I don't remember if he spent the night, but he had spent the night a couple of times. So there were things that Taylor was really upset about that I thought, it's in my right, you feel what you feel, you can't help how you feel. So she's feeling all of this. But from an outsider, I thought those are things that maybe it's very nuanced. Did you make out in the bed versus the couch? We're really upset that Dakota said they made out on the couch when really they went back to the bed, but he's not saying they did anything else. And she's saying they didn't sleep together and they maybe were handsy, but that and so, I'm like, why are we upset that he didn't specify they went back in the bedroom when nothing actually, to me, it's like if you went further and said you didn't, then that's different. But where the location was in saying the exact same like level of intimacy, I don't know that we should be freaking out about that. But she sees the text and she sees that he is taking her out on day dates and apologizing for maybe going too far and saying cute things. And she felt, so this really hit me. Like she felt like she was just the night girl. And
Yeah.
he was courting someone, dating someone during the day in a more traditional sense. And she was just the girl he showed up to like at her home at night to
Like a
sleep.
booty call or something
Yeah.
like that is how she's saying.
And that would not feel good for even if you were inviting that, right? Like I just want to hook up. So come on over. It's nighttime, whatever.
Yeah.
But see that that was also going on and that's the father of your child and you love them. I could see how that would not feel good. That would be hurtful. But then I think the worst thing was Jenna said that when she asked him, "Are you seeing Taylor?" He said, no, it's not serious. I'm just seeing her for clout. And I was like, that's the worst offense to me. Like, forget he went to the bedroom when he said he was on the couch. Can we like forget about that? That's that to me that feels unimportant. He said that he was just seeing you for clout. I would have a huge problem with that. What do you think, though?
Well, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think I kind of want to talk about like the way Taylor's reacting because I'm on Taylor's side here. He's being dishonest and she can tell, and he is. So in that way, Taylor's pain feels really valid to me. I
Yeah.
think that because she feels it so strongly and because maybe she doesn't know how to describe or like navigate it and does focus on these things, I think that hurts her impression management for other people also because I think it's easy to be like, you're crazy, which really invalidates her feelings. And I don't think she is. I think it's these things that make it feel really like maybe inaccessible or like she's, focused on the wrong things. So I really have so much empathy for what Taylor's sort of like trying to figure out, even in herself. Um, what Dakota is being accused of here that you just said, I do think this is the part that blows my mind. If you watched our season one, you know that I was trying to be as big a Dakota fan as possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if so he's dating two people. There's an ethical way to date two people, and you can still hurt either one, but you can
Mhm.
go on dates. We haven't agreed we're exclusive,
Mhm.
so I'm dating somebody else. I'm sleeping with somebody else. You can do that ethically. It can still hurt people's feelings.
Yeah.
The part that feels so super duper unethical here for me is he's literally telling each one, she's chasing me. I'm with her for clout. Like, what is that about?
Yes.
Where you
Agreed.
are
100%.
acting like this person's crazy so that you can date both of them. What's your end game here? Really bad behavior.
I agree, hands down. Like we talked about this last season, where if you're, I think she says episode two, but I'm not spoiling anything really, that, at this point they had been together a few times. They've gotten together a few times. It was very, very early. You don't owe anyone anything in terms of like if it is if you're being open, we are not exclusive. I'm allowed to date whomever I want. And but it's when you say it, you need to be open about that. Like yeah, I'm seeing other people. I'm hooking up with other people or I'm making out with other people. I think even having conversations, if you're sleeping with someone, are you sleeping with other people? That's really important to know.
Yeah.
And I think the transparency there, yes, it might hurt I don't love hearing that necessarily, but at least we know what's going on. Everyone's consenting. But when you think that there's maybe nothing else going on with someone, you think you're the only person, and it turns out there's this other side, it would be hard to trust that person, even though it is early on in the relationship. It's the transparency and
Yeah.
honesty. So I
Yeah.
agree.
It feels really I understand that some people can be really jealous and so maybe he's navigating like I don't know who I like more or I don't know if one of these beautiful women will dump me and I'll be left with the other one and that'll make the decision easy for me. And so I'm going to start off by talking down about that person so that whoever I end up with, like it's complicated maybe to how maybe he's sort of like figuring this out, but it all feels just self-protective, right? It's how do I date them both? How do I It sounds like the way Dakota dates too is to be so super sweet. So that love bombing that so many bad men are good at, which
Yeah.
is I could imagine him telling both of them at the same time, gosh, I just think I'm really falling for you. And just sort of like
Mhm.
politically saying what the person in front of him wants to hear the most, but kind of like managing everybody in a way that is dishonest.
You know who else does that?
Who?
Jen.
Oh, Jen?
I think Jen Affleck does that. Yes.
Yeah, well, we'll hear
Well,
about that.
yeah, I think. Well, yeah, yeah, no, I agree. I don't think he's not being honest. And I think if he were just transparent, but that whole impression management and really, that seems to be a theme to me, like throughout even the next couple of episodes and maybe the whole season. I haven't finished the season.
I'll say that I don't disagree with Macy. I had mixed feelings about really, I mean, the way that it was staged again, but forcing Taylor to have this conversation. But I do think it's probably better. And so,
I don't think anyone forced Taylor. I think Taylor really wanted to have that conversation. That's what I think.
well, I guess she was nervous and Macy was just reassuring her by saying, like, this is, at least it'll answer the questions. And you might not like the answers, but like you got to know. And so, yeah, that's probably more how that happened.
Yeah. Taylor says something which she repeats later, but that she feels like trash, and that made me feel really sad. Like I felt really sad for her when she said that.
I mean, that does come up, and I think when we're looking at people's backstories, it's hard to imagine Taylor's objectively like really beautiful. In a lot of ways, maybe she's the star of Montauk or has been, so she has all of this charisma and different things that are going for her. So it might be hard to imagine that she really is experiencing herself as a trashy person. And I think we'll see kind of some more hints of like why she feels that way and where that comes from. But it's really heartbroken because what I heard from her sobbing there is, I deserve this. But it is that, but so ultimately what comes out of this episode is at some point it sounds like Dakota had showed her texts as proof. And then when comparing to the texts that this woman brought, he had deleted some of the texts
Yes, that's what I wanted to say.
that would have
Yeah.
been more upsetting to Taylor, as he'll just explain later. But that's her basically saying like, okay, you're caught in a lie. You are lying to me. And then whatever Taylor has been worried about feels confirmed, and she really has like she sobs and she breaks down, which I think is like the time to do that.
I dated someone a long time ago who was more afraid of getting in trouble, like fe than feeling bad about doing the thing in the
Mm,
first place. And it felt very much like Dakota. Whereas I think, we're supposed to feel guilt at certain times. There's obviously inappropriate or unwarranted guilt that we can feel for things we have no reason to feel guilty for. But there are other times where it is appropriate to feel guilty, and that guilt is helpful. That emotion is helpful to motivate us to do things like apologize or pay more attention to our behavior and not do that again. And so, in that way, there's good to feeling guilt at times.
hmm
But there's a difference between I'm feeling guilty about doing this hurtful thing to my partner and I feel I need to talk about it versus I'm I'm afraid of getting in trouble. I don't actually feel super guilty about like the guilt isn't motivating to say anything. The fear of getting in trouble at least outweighs any guilt that might be present. And I think that's problematic.
Yeah.
But
Yep, for sure. Right. So there is a brief scene where Miranda meets up with Whitney. And this scene is just funny too because it's showing Whitney's avenue to get back to the group. Of course, she's like, "Oh, you're hated too. You're trying to get in too. Let's form an alliance or whatever they do on Survivor."
well, she said in her interview, can we please have a new villain? That person can't be me.
Yeah.
Like maybe this is my opportunity. By the way, wherever they went with those kids, the background was stunning. It looked like
Hmm.
something from The Sound of Music.
Were
It
they at
was
the park?
they were at a park, but there were like mountains behind them.
Utah has beautiful mountain ranges
Quite
just right
beautiful.
there. Yeah,
I was in awe. Okay,
that's
so
cool. I was yawning. I was so used to it, it had no impact on me.
yeah, old news.
But then very quickly, we go to a scene where they're going to a haunted house. I thought this was funny. I think there's a couple of mentions around what the Mormon church does or doesn't think about Halloween. In my experience, in my opinion, it makes zero mention of it ever. I've never heard anyone say anything about it.
Yeah,
I
I wanted to ask you about that when she's like, people wonder if Mormons celebrate Halloween. I was like, do
do
they?
they?
People wondering that?
Of the things people wonder, I actually am not sure they're wondering that.
No, I think they celebrate Halloween, but what do I know? I don't know
Well, what I
anything.
will say is, I think there are sects of Christianity or maybe non-denominational Christianity or whatever that I've heard of who think it's evil and celebrates evil and is of the devil or whatever. This is a time where I think I can feel kind of proud. I don't think Mormons like are quite that superstitious. They're like, we understand that it's costumes and candy. It's all in good fun. Celebrate. There's an annual trunk or treat at whatever local ward building. It's costumes and candy and everything.
Yeah. I also wonder, I mean, so knowing people from like a more of a non-denominational Christian church, I who they celebrate Halloween, but there are things like you don't go to a fortune teller or you don't, do a seance type thing. You don't like invite the Ouija board is a no-no. And so Those are things that I think of are more taboo or off limits. But Halloween, where kids are you decorate your house, you carve pumpkins, you dress up and get candy, I don't think as much as is problematic for people. But
Yeah, that's interesting. I think that's actually the same too. I don't think it's talked about as much, but I think the
mhm,
the overall counsel is don't seek real spiritual experiences or advice in avenues outside of, the Holy Spirit or God.
don't welcome in ghosties.
But then, but I'll hear about people who go to a fortune teller and I guess they're just hedging their bets. They're just like, oh, I just want to get as much information as possible to make my decisions. So, whatever.
Macy, I don't know if was this at this point. Macy said something about Miranda. She wants that bag, baby. She's clout chasing,
She's clout chasing. She hasn't had anything to do with us, hasn't talked to us,
not here for the right reasons.
not here for the right reasons. It's cool because they're drinking these like shiny drinks and whatever.
I didn't notice the shiny drinks.
They were like glowing ice cubes. I was enchanted.
Oh, I want to go back and see that. That sounds great. I love Halloween. Can I just say too, like this episode or the next episode, Halloween, October is my favorite month of the year. I mean,
Mm.
it kickstarts like the holiday season. You have Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas. My birthday's in the middle of that. I love it. It's a great season, great time of year. And October sort of kicks it off. I love the fall. And so maybe want to fast forward because right now it's just June.
It's just June. The scene after this.
It's with Taylor and her mom, right?
Oh, that's right. Yes. Is the
Mom has
baby's
a,
name Ever True?
it is.
They've named the baby Ever True. One word. Hyphen? I don't know.
No, I think okay, I don't they call the baby Ever. And at one point they say Ever True. So I felt like True was a middle name
Oh, okay.
and not a double name, but I don't know. I don't know.
So the baby's name is Ever True. That's adorable. And this woman, this unrecognizable cast member, joins Taylor at her house.
Love a good glow up. I love a good glow up. We are here.
We talked a little bit about plastic surgery and different things last time. I don't,
He, he had a little glow up last season, mid-season.
yeah,
This glow up
it's like
was
reconstructive surgery or something.
he had like a facelift. Like she had a nose job and a facelift. She had her lips done.
Yeah.
She asked if she looked like sisters to Taylor. And honestly, I was like, yeah.
I mean,
Taylor was like, I mean, because that's her mom. I was like, I mean, you could tell you're not in your 20s, but you guys look a lot alike.
I know. And she's sort of like, I mean, you look, I guess it's very fresh too. So she's sort of like, I think once the swelling goes down, you'll look normal or something. So it's so interesting. It's so fascinating to me. Obviously, what people feel like on the inside is consistent. And so changing the outside doesn't change anything, but it sure is jolting. It's like when you meet somebody wearing a mask at first and then, during COVID, and then they would drop their mask and you're just like, oh my gosh, now I have to like readjust to what your face actually looks like. It's sort of like that
Yes,
adjustment.
that is so true. That it is so true. Because I would have patients that would come, we started off mask only. And then when mask was off, I was like, that's what your face looks like. Not in a bad way, but just, okay, that is not what, you see this much and then your brain sort of creates the rest of it.
Yeah, I
And
usually
then
just
that's
picture like a
off.
line with the little like tongue hanging out and then
And you're like, oh wow, there's an
oh.
actual
But anyway, I was distracted by the fact that she had a different face, basically. Different face, different body coming in. And I was curious because we saw Zach having some kind of like processing of whatever he heard about season one. We had Whitney thinking about how she came across in season one. Maybe Leanne didn't get this feedback that we had. Maybe she missed our show, but I was curious to see if she had changed her stripes at all. And while I found that she changed much about her,
what she did not change.
she did not change the thing where she couldn't, like, very early on in the conversation, was just like, I just wish you thought about this before you had a baby with this person. And I just want to tear my hair out. I just can't even believe that that is all she has to say.
For like 13, 14 months we're like we said it right when Taylor was pregnant. We said it during the pregnancy. Ever true is what? That baby looks like he's at least 3 months old, at least, maybe four. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm a bad gauge of infant ages, but um,
Oh, but so she does say something different. There is one point where she says the right thing at the wrong time. And so Taylor talks about how she's feeling about Dakota, how she's feeling unsure, how she just found out all this stuff happened. And so now, more than ever, she's upset by this. And so Leanne then says the right thing at the wrong time, which is she's like, yeah, but that was in the past. It's like, where do we go from here? And I'm like, that is what you should be saying all the time, and you're only saying it when you want to excuse Dakota's feelings and move forward from here. But when it's time to have your daughter's back about her own behavior, you're all the way back there again. It was so frustrating to watch. It's like, oh, so you do know that moving forward and leaving the past behind is like an important step, but you're not offering that to Taylor. You only offer that to Dakota.
only to Dakota. Taylor, I mean, like maybe they don't like they're not showing this, but if my mom kept repeating that, I would say, I've had enough. I've had enough of that. We get it. The baby's here. It is what it is. What do you want me to do? Go back in time? Like I would have a big reaction. It just seems so unnecessary. I wrote all in caps. Not again, mom.
Well, so here's the thing. If you have conflict with somebody and you're trying to move forward and they're like, but you did that bad thing, that's them needing an apology to them, right? Like that's like, I'm not over this yet, so we don't move forward yet. And so to me, I'm like, does mom think she needs an apology? Does she have to keep saying this because she's not seeing Taylor like sorry enough about it? And I don't know what she wants. I don't know if she wants Taylor to just be like, I know, I'm so ashamed. I should have listened to you. I'm terrible. Like it feels like mom's just not getting enough of Taylor agreeing with that, so she has to keep saying it. But I'm like, why does she owe you an apology, mom? She like this didn't happen to you.
Well, this is when Taylor does talk about her bio dad.
She does, and I think it's revealing, and I don't think it should be overlooked because she tells this story. It's part of a TikTok that shows at some point, and then she tells this story. It's very memorable for her. She only met her bio dad once. They were at a restaurant. He said,
What up, kid?
and that's all he's ever said to her. And so she's telling this story and she's thinking about the story and she's feeling this story. And then we see Taylor with these like very strong attachment issues and
Yeah.
trust issues and abandonment issues. Those things are connected.
Yes.
And what I think sucks, what I would really like any listeners to really hear is if you don't feel that way and you don't go through that, even hearing that explanation, I think it's easy to be like, why don't they get over it? I feel like I would get over it. I think it's important to believe that like if that were your story, it would be hard for you to get over too. Like that is very deeply impactful. Who knows what's going on for him? The reason that he said what he did or didn't or whatever, but it's clear he's not in her life and that that's what hurts her.
Yeah. Yeah, that is, when you think of your parents, your mom and your dad, your primary attachment figures, or that's someone who you are assuming should be a primary attachment figure. And to just feel dismissed in that way, yeah, that would leave you, especially as a kiddo, and you start off as a young person with those beliefs. Like, I'm not feeling important to this person's life, this person who is supposed to think I am important to them and
Yeah.
what to think is important to me. And if that person wants not much to do with me, how does that shape how you view yourself as a child in the mind of like a 4-year old? Because I think she was like 4 or 5, right? I think she said she
Yep,
was.
she actually says she was age 2, which is hard to believe she even remembers that, but very young.
Yeah. So, I mean, that then just carries on. And it can be really hard to shake that core belief.
Every therapist I know loves the movie Inside Out because of how accurate they got the brain, despite being this colorful, magical place. But the idea of a core memory taking place because it's so impactful and sort of like pivotal in the way that you see yourself and experience the world, or builds the islands that sort of support your most deeply held values. Like these are the things that sort of shape those and play with that.
It's so good. I love Inside Out. I think it's great. So it's very sad.
The next scene is Zach and Jen doing ketamine therapy. So I don't remember if I said much about this in the first season. The only my complaint about people who are doing ketamine therapy without the therapy is that they're not doing the therapy part. And so
They're just
ketamine,
at me.
they're just doing ketamine. As far as I can tell, there is a positive impact of ketamine, and I don't think there's necessarily a detrimental impact of the ketamine the way that they're doing it. So like I'm not saying that it's harmful, but I just think that there's so much more that can come from that therapy when it's assisted by like some talk therapy, both going into it and afterward. And maybe there was some of that, but maybe set intentions, maybe process what happens afterward. So I
Yeah.
want to say that the setup in which they were doing ketamine therapy was not my favorite. And obviously, as a marriage counselor, I was sort of like, I hope they're also doing marriage counseling and not just the ketamine together, but whatever. It's fine. I would do it. I would be totally down for a ketamine couples therapy session for sure. They do ketamine. It is interesting because the effect of ketamine, in my understanding, it's a hallucinogen. It's a tranquilizer. It has a similar but different effect from psilocybin, which is like magic mushrooms or LSD. Um, but what it can do is it can put you in a state of safety, connection, and ego death, which can be really helpful if the things that you're worried about are anxiety or depression, past or present. It can kind of like put you in the present and make you care a little bit less about those things that you thought were very important. I guess there's just a couple things to talk about to finish out this episode. One is Dakota is asked to move out. He's
Packing
like,
up his
we like we like dry
Wait,
humped, and I fell asleep on her couch, he says, when talking about what he did with the other person. So now I got to move out because 18 months ago I dry humped.
that's why he's packing up boxes, putting clothes up.
For all of Dakota's lies and then jealousy, he does really want to be in a family with Taylor and this baby. Like he wants that. So this is very hard. He's trying to make it work. And unfortunately, his version of trying to make it work is to like deny certain things that he hopes he can get away with because he does because he thinks that'll end the relationship, which it might have. So
Fingers crossed. It'll be
yeah.
fun.
So, it's he's obviously hurting in this scene. How are you feeling about Dakota at this point? I feel like once it's all out and he's being emotional on camera, looking exhausted, when you've got a young kid. Um,
Mhm.
and he's sort of saying like, yeah, I lied. I didn't want to lose my family. I wanted this so much. I mean, how are you feeling about Dakota? Maybe compared to Zach, maybe compared to others, just in terms of responding to their feedback.
I did not love Dakota season one. Season two so far, I mean, I think part of me feels bad for Dakota because he clearly just doesn't know how to be in a relationship. He doesn't
Mhm.
know how to respond. I mean, it seems like he has a lot of work that he needs to do, and he has a lot of growth, and I think there's a ton of potential there. And I don't know what you think. I think that there's a ton of potential. He wants, yeah, like you said, he wants that family. I think he loves Taylor. He obviously loves his baby, but he has a lot of work that he needs to do. And he's acting confused as to why Taylor is upset. And I think that is a problem. So that is my opinion. I think that there is hope for Dakota, though. I will say that. Your thoughts?
That's all very fascinating because he does seem confused. I'm curious about his confusion because that sounds to me like he doesn't think what he did is much of a big deal, and maybe he's going back to what I talked a lot about in the first season, which was like logistically, were you together or not? Like maybe he's really getting caught up on like I didn't do anything wrong in those ways, you know,
He
and he's not appreciating that what he did do impacted Taylor in certain ways and that that's real too.
he did say in his interview that what he lied about was he was on the couch and he went to the bedroom. But I think there's hope for Dakota. I feel bad for him in that I think he is confused and he needs to figure it out. I think he can possibly figure it out. Is he in therapy? I feel like he's the only, everyone's like, I'm in therapy except for Dakota. Dakota needs therapy if he's not in therapy. I think he
Yeah.
benefits from it, some reflection. And yeah, I think he's very conflict avoidant.
Hmm.
And so that's where the let me delete some of the text messages, which honestly dumb because if Jenna messaged Macy on anonymously or whatever on Sinner Sun, was it anonymous? How did I don't even remember how Macy found out that it was Jenna. But anyway, if that's happening and that was on season one could assume that there might be a meetup. I don't know. I would think like
I think it's like people are not that conscientious about covering their tracks until they're wanted for murder, and then they realize
well,
all the
even
ways
I've watched a lot of Snapped episodes and people aren't
they're not doing it.
they're not doing a good job either.
Yeah.
So,
You're right, though, conflict avoidant, because I do think plenty of men or people will sort of justify their lying because it's like the way you react is why I lie. And honestly, sometimes when I hear, depending on the situation, sometimes I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. And other times I'm like, that's not a good enough excuse. So I think there's a combination here where Taylor's reactions are probably pretty big, pretty difficult. And if you genuinely are like, this is not a big deal, but her reaction will be, I could see why it might be tempting to omit truths.
yeah.
But that's not
Oh,
going to be a good match in the long run, so it's not sustainable.
no. And I think probably from Dakota, he's like, gosh, that was so and yeah, like you said, I could kind of see he's like we went out a couple of times at that point. And it was very, very early. We weren't exclusive. We have been together. We've had a baby together. I want to move forward. And I could see how someone would be like, why are we perseverating on this event that happened almost 2 years ago?
Yeah.
And it was pretty insignificant in his mind. But I think going back to what you said, what we talked about, Taylor's history with her bio dad, those attachment issues. It's really important to her. And I think having a conversation, yeah, I betrayed your trust and what can I do moving forward? What can we do? And I think just being more open to her feelings and would be helpful.
If you think that what is going on is she doesn't know if I'm in this relationship for real, and you're like, but clearly I am, the past year and more has just proven that. But if the issue is you lied and are still lying, therefore I don't know when you're not lying, and that's my problem. Like, can I trust you now? That's different.
I also, the the theme which you mentioned earlier, mom said, and this comes up a ton, I feel like in the next few episodes. It's that was in the past. Can we just move forward and let's focus on the present and the future? But the best predictor of future behavior is past. And
Mm-hmm.
that's,
Mm-hmm.
I remember I had in undergrad, my boyfriend at the time cheated on me and I was heartbroken. And I was a research assistant to a doctoral student at the time. So I was an undergrad. And of course, I'm like, Sherry, she was married and like pregnant with her first child at the time. And I was like, my boyfriend just cheated on me as I'm like typing, like entering like data stuff. And, and I remember I asked her, and she was a behavioralist. So this says a lot. And I said, do you think that he would cheat on other people in the future? Or do you think this was just me? Do you think that he just did this to me? And that's what she said. The best predictor of future behavior is past. So if it happened with you, it probably would happen to someone else. And honestly, that brought me so much comfort this time.
That it wasn't about you, it was about him.
Yes, yes, because I'm like, okay, it's not, yeah, exactly. It's not about me. This is an issue that this person has, and whether I know whether he did that with someone else or not didn't matter. It just how it brought me comfort thinking it wasn't me at the time when I was 20 years old. Um,
Yeah.
but I often think about that just in general. Yeah. So you could think if you did this in the past, even if it feels minor, inconsequential to you, then it could, some version of that could happen in the future. Yeah.
Because I was just thinking in terms of cheating, that's often true too. Like often people who are cheating, whatever it looks like, usually it's about them, right? It isn't about their partner or how happy they are or aren't. It's just something about the way they're operating. But and so with just Dakota, if you were looking at it from that lens, is like, okay, is he a cheater, right? Once
Mhm.
cheater, always a cheater. Is that what's going on? I could see where he has a place to sort of say, like, by the way that I measure things, I don't, right? Like once I'm in a relationship, I wouldn't, and that hasn't happened. And so we're not, to me, we're not seeing that he's a cheater. We're seeing that he's a liar,
Right.
but not a cheater. And
Right.
so maybe it depends on what Taylor's question is. And maybe she doesn't know, are you a cheater or a liar? I think that whether she knows it or not, she's worried that he can't be trusted.
Agree. Mhm.
Well, the final part of this episode is Miranda, that clout chasing who's who of the Mom Talk history, is throwing a happy
Happy
hour.
with a charcuterie board
The ladies who lunch are having a happy hour. And so she's laid out all the meats like you do.
and cheeses with the mom talk cheese
That's
lettuce.
right. I was like, there's something about the cheese that made Michaela give me some more of that mean girl where he's just like, oh, look at this. She carved the cheese into letters. What a dummy.
He was like,
I
I'm gonna take the M off the mom talk cheese.
enjoy talk. So so we'll tune into the next episode and see how the rest of the happy hour goes. The talk happy hour.
Until next time.
See you later.